Will the party make public its donor list for this election?
We'll do whatever the law requires of us.
That's not that. Which is not.
That's a good answer. Dr. Chang, will the JLP voluntarily release the list of its funders or donors for this election?
Most donors give money confidentially. There are a few who go public now, where the law allows them to go to the Electoral Commission and they announce. Those who don't go that route tend to be, and then but bear in mind that after the election period starts, there's a limit on how much you can give without declaring it anyway. And that will become public. I think it's $250,000 that has to be declared. As the most candidates who are mature have maybe collected their election money already. And there's another aspect to it that you.
So the law is circumvented?
Not circumvented. They do what is illegal. They don't wish to declare their contribution publicly because there are people in peculiar
So what's
position.
the point of the law then?
No, the law is there for if people rush into instead of bad election can come in and late, which they have to declare it. That means if people giving $10-20 million in election period, it's an issue.
So maybe we should get rid of the election
But the law is structured, but again, the law they may wish to review because on a personal view, we never discussed at the party level, we have to look towards public financing. I think most politicians, the leadership have not looked at it because if you mention to spend a couple of $1 billion on political campaigning, everybody started to raise dialogue, why are you going to spend that? But it's cost that. And we have to keep the law as it is, which is maybe the way of move. Because, and I said, Bradley, if you're going to keep if you're going to keep the real political culture alive and well in any society, and I say, well, I'm going for my political. So, the emerging middle class, the political class of a country, not people inherited, people who have growing in the society and have they retain their connection with their humility and they have ambition as to where they should go and they tend to educate people. If we don't allow for a level of public financing that more openly than we have now, you'll never be able to recruit those people. You ask a young lawyer who succeeded is maybe 10 years of practice, they have good income, tend to come into the house for a salary which it may be run on one contract. It's ridiculous. And therefore they ask them to begin to build up political supporters, which they're not getting the first term. So the law is sort of structured. The party have to extend itself to support and then you get the bigger contributions. And you find there are individuals who contribute to both parties if they're big enough. Others feel they're in a sensitive post, they don't want to announce their country parties. But you need public contribution to run the election. That's the law. So it's not about whether you want the law is wrong or not. You need to examine now at this stage of development. But the law we have is appropriate and adequate.
Will the party make public its donor list for this election?
We'll do whatever the law requires of us.
That's not that. Which is not.
That's a good answer.
It is not of course, very good. It is.
It is very direct.
But
Whatever the law requires of
specific.
us. We are law abiding.
Yeah, man.
Whatever the law requires of us, we will do.
They will do the bare minimum.
No, what the law requires of us.
Which is the bare minimum?
No.
No.
So we are many
There are many who are not complying with the law. Like the Prime Minister who would not comply with getting his return certified. So it's certainly not complying is not the bare minimum.
You have ordered your election campaign paraphernalia and all those things months ago.
Long time.
Okay. Will that be factored into your campaign?
No, you only
Okay.
report on
So the campaign period is what? 6 months before? 6 months before the 5th anniversary of the due date?
You should tell me
So what
about
the legislators have passed is a legislation that people can front load is that expression, front load the expenditures and which would include the
That's
donations
why it's
and
so
then
important to have fixed election day.
Yeah.
so what was it?
That's why it's so important to have fixed election days.
Yes, but the point is, you're saying that it's the bare minimum. What you're going to disclose to us, well, not necessarily to us, but to the ECJ, is whatever is spent. You understand, but you're front
I
loaded.
understand that we didn't order any paraphernalia to circumvent the laws. We ordered the paraphernalia to be ready for an election that we don't know when it's going to be called.
So you can go beyond
what it was
and
going to
that-
be called before February, before March. And I would want you to say to the mayor of Montego Bay that the campaign period started.
I was on the ECJ and had a significant role because I was also in cabinet and on the ECJ when our election financing, campaign financing laws were passed. It took a lot to just introduce it at all, right? We never expected that would be the final version of it, but at least it was a start. Now, at the time, I argued, for example, that all donations over, I forget what the figure was, over a threshold, like 250,000, should be public. I was not successful on the ECJ they didn't, because they said, we're just introducing something. You don't want to make it too radical,
Right.
and then you create incentives for people to go around it. So let us introduce something that it should be fairly easy to comply with. And then having gotten people accustomed to this kind of reporting, etc., and registration of parties, etc., then over time you can perfect it, And I think that was the intention. It's been now maybe over 10 years. I think it might be time to look again. I certainly am in favor of more transparency, but not unilaterally, because that would put you at a disadvantage. Because most Jamaicans, them say, me don't want man come lick me down on the road, or me don't want man kidnap me, pick me, why my business have to be out the road? So if one party is going to put your business out the road, but the other one is not, then you would put yourself at a competitive disadvantage. So there's no unilateral disarmament in this kind of
No,
thing.
but
It
shouldn't
must be by law.
Jamaicans know who are funding political parties?
I agree
You don't
with it,
have to
but
say
I'm
1
saying
billion,
this
10
must be
billion.
this must be by
You
law.
need to know the list of donors.
We need to make the law say that. And the list of donors without putting the money
figure.
beside it, don't think it's particularly meaningful.
That's a start. It's a start.
Because then you just put everybody name.
But you want to
you
know
know?
the money is
Senator
free.
Bunting, when you say we need to make the law say that, we the Jamaicans.
Jamaicans. We Jamaicans, we must
No,
call.
but-
We must
Right,
decide.
but
We
you
must
Right,
experience.
but
That is the majority that is going to lead the process.
But you and I know that if the parliamentarians want it to become law, it will. And if they don't want it to become law, it won't.
Can pass
And I
it
can use the,
That's why we need
and I
the right
can use
majority
the,
in the parliament.
I can use
Yeah.
the gap clause in the IC legislation as an example.
No, that's not a
Thank
good
you.
example. That's not a good example.
Yes, sir?
That's not a good example because it has been interpreted in a particularly expansive way that was never the intention.
That's
of
really
the
interpreted,
legislature.
enforced as well. As such.
No, it was not enforced. No court compelled them to do it. They chose to interpret it in that expansive way. That was never the intention. And in fact, in the Joint Select Committee, nobody is advocating it for it to be interpreted that way. And we intend to change it.